Hey everybody. Oh wait, I do not have my stuff on there. I was going to have this in my background. There. That's what we're doing today. It's Friday.
Yep.
So I don't know why I start big. Donovan and I were chatting as that awesome theme song was playing. Like, I don't know why I start big because I always feel uncomfortable when I'm big. So I'm just going to go straight into making myself small. And then that way I feel more equal with Donovan, who doesn't get as much screen time as I do here. Here we go. And small head. All right. So what are we doing today? Donovan, it's your idea.
Oh, was that a question or a statement?
There's a big question mark on the screen, so I'm going to let you take this one. What are we doing today?
Yeah.
Since I'm going to be doing a lot more talking here in just a few minutes.
So we're trying something a little bit new. We don't typically do this, but we are continuing a model that was started last week with Aaron, modeling the historic Chapline Street Row in Ohio. So he did one of the buildings. Today, Eric is going to guide us through doing another building, showing his process for modeling these buildings based on reference images. And so if you were here last week and saw how Aaron modeled his his building, you can see the differences or the similarities between Aaron's workflow and Eric's workflow. So we're going to try this out, see how well it does. Maybe next week we'll have somebody else do another building. We will see. But for that, yeah, Eric, it's all you, man. You're the man of the hour, or the 2 hours, as it were.
Yeah, we'll see how if we use 2 hours. This is gonna be fun. Speaking of, and you know what, I wasn't planning on doing this, but I'm gonna do this right now as we're kind of letting people trickle into the chat. So as people are say hello, let us know where you're coming from. I do want to kind of make a little bit of it's not going to be a shameless plug because, this is actually part of my job here is to do SketchUp campus work. So when I'm not doing live and I'm not doing the YouTube work and I'm not training inside at Basecamp, I'm recording sessions. And speaking of modeling from reference images, we actually just launched a course right now, which is walking you through the entire step-by-step process of building a building when you have nothing else to go off of. Literally the stuff you find from online. So this process that we're doing here is a little bit different because we're not going to get into match photo, we're not going to get into watermarks, and we're not going to get into geolocation and stuff like that. We're just going to use a reference image to trace over. But we go into a lot more detail in that campus course. That's right here, architecture building from reference. That just launched last week. So for those that didn't, yeah, I don't know. Just going to plug it. So if you're interested, check it out. It's free. All you got to do is have a Trimble ID or log in to SketchUp Campus at learn.sketchup.com. So there's my plug. And yeah, I guess I'm ready to go. Let's do this. So yeah, where's everybody?
Yeah,
As I kind of get started.
Plug.
Yeah, exactly. Let everyone know who's coming from where. Hello, everyone. Welcome.
Yeah. So for our audience, again, we mention this every week. We do have an international audience coming at us from all over the world on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on X, on Facebook. We stream continuously throughout those multiple platforms. So if you're out there, let us know where you're from. But so far, we have people from the United States here in New York, from Switzerland, Consberg, I'm probably saying that wrong, Norway. We also have Philly. We have Toronto, Ontario, Canada, Newfoundland. We've got people from Vancouver, Washington. And somebody asked us, are we streaming from Colorado? And the quick answer is no. Our headquarters for SketchUp is in Colorado, but our employees are kind of all over the place. So I myself am streaming from Oklahoma. Eric?
Yeah, I'm from California Central Coast, so we are not quite international here on SketchUp team for the content team and the training team, but we do get around. And speaking of getting around, we'll also see some people next month in Las Vegas. So that's we're also going to be streaming next week together. Not next weekend, sorry, I'm plugged the wrong weekend. I'm doing this streaming because I'll be out next week, so I switched with Tyson, who would normally be in this seat today. But the week after that, that would be, let's see here, I don't know, I don't have my calendar up here, but in 2 weeks from today, we'll be streaming together in Colorado. So we'll actually be all together as a team, and that will be fun. I'm looking forward to that. Don't know what we're going to be doing.
Yep, one of the things that we're doing is celebrating the 500,000 subscribers that we hit on YouTube. So getting all together, we're going to find a fun way to just hang out with everybody, celebrate this milestone that we hit, as a community. because it's not just us here as a company. We're nothing without the community, the foundation of all you guys being out there, coming to join these lives, watching our videos on YouTube, commenting, being part of the forums, everything like that. And so when we get together in 2 weeks as a team, we're going to be able to sit down and to celebrate all of you being part of this community and this milestone of hitting 500,000 subscribers.
Yeah, love it. So I've just started, as we were kind of doing our intro, I just started drawing. I do want to kind of maybe take a step back and say, for those that didn't catch Aaron's stream, that was from last week, please go back and watch that one. It's always fun to get some context. He did a great job, and I'll just kind of let him know. I'll just kind of let you know really quick where he got to. He only did the facade, and I went ahead and extruded it. And the reason why is because I have this bad habit of always wanting to geolocate stuff, so basically put things in their context. So what I did was I just kind of took his model to the next step he gave me where he left off, and I went ahead and added a location to it. So for those that don't know where we are in the world, if I go to geolocation, add more imagery. So I wasn't familiar with this little street and why we picked it, but it's actually pretty sweet. It's in Ohio, a little town called Wheeling. So if I zoom out, little industrial town. And maybe it's easier to see it on the street map than it is on the satellite. But you can see we're pretty much just outside of Pittsburgh, between Pittsburgh and Columbus, and it's almost at the border of Pennsylvania and Ohio. So for those who want to learn a little geography lesson for the United States, Ohio is a place I don't spend a ton of time in, but that is where we are, and that's pretty cool. So I did add the geolocation. You'll notice, though, that the angle is at the street grid is at an angle. So the first thing, of course, I do is I replace. I come over to my axis and I place it. And what it'll do is it'll allow me to line it to the street grid. And then when I go to hit my shortcut Command 1, which is to view it in top view, I'm aligned with, now I'm drawing ortho to the street grid, which is going to make it easier, my life a little bit easier. So that's kind of cool. That's something that's took the torch that Aaron gave me and sort of taking it to the next level. I'm seeing my chats are cutting off a little bit, so I'm going to, yeah. So the other thing,
speaking of chats, one of the things that clearly you do differently than Aaron, talking about differences and similarities in modeling, is Brad brought up in the chat on YouTube that your pink line style really helps to see what you're drawing on top of reference images. And I know we've talked about this before between the differences of like Aaron's modeling and your modeling. You really like adding color to your line so that you can have that separation between your modeling and the references you're working with.
I'm doing math here. So when I get quiet, it means I'm doing math. Yeah, so for those that have seen me model or taken a course with me before, whenever we're tracing on reference images, I'll come into the styles and I'll do a couple of things. Number one is I'll make it transparent or X-ray. I say transparent, but X-ray mode. And the reason why is because as you start to draw, you can see what happened here is that the faces will fill in as you enclose areas. So really quickly, it's going to start blocking what you're drawing. And depending on what you're tracing, that might be okay. I don't want to see my hidden geometry. So I will hit N. I have a keyboard shortcut, which turns hidden objects and hidden geometry off. And then the second thing I'll do is change the edge color. So for those that don't know this, hopefully everyone knows this, but if you're relatively new to SketchUp, this one might be a bit tricky, but in styles, you can go ahead and change the edge color to anything you want. So if you don't like pink, don't use pink. You want to switch it to straight red, or you want to pitch it to blue. I try to stay away from yellow because yellow and white are hard to see. I also stay away from blue because oftentimes the selection color, like when you select things in SketchUp, you'll notice like I just selected it and it turns blue. So I kind of avoid blue because my default selection is blue. Yeah, so that's that. So that's my little setup. That's my tracing style. And you can also save this. The other thing too is for those that have seen some other videos that I do, is I'll save this as my drawing template. So when I open a new file, I have these styles already in there. So I don't have to recreate this every time. It's already in there waiting for me. So that was a little bit of, that's probably more than information than you needed. So how to approach this? You'll notice that one thing I'm going to do is I've already split this in half. And I'm going to try to kind of trace quickly because, to be honest with you, I want to spend more time over here. Let me show you what I mean by over here. I have this, something I did while we were waiting for this stream to start is I went ahead and just grabbed some images and brought those in. And if you look closely, you can kind of generally, this shouldn't be too difficult. And I say that, but I'm crossing my fingers because the form is pretty simple. But what's going to be difficult is going to be the details. So getting the sort of using the follow me tool in order to get these profiles that are really complex, using components for like the dentals. Maybe using the freehand tool, probably not the freehand tool, but the arc tool to get some of these nice curves. So it's going to come down to the details on this one. The one next to it, if we're lucky, it's almost the same. You can see that there's just some very slight differences. Hey, if we get to it, we'll copy it, we'll make it unique, and we'll go from there. But right now I'm just kind of worried about getting one done in the time. So that's what we're working with. I have two views set up. One is my tracing view. That's going to take me back to plan view. And then the other one is going to be my viewing view. And that's going to that's going to see. And because it's a component, whether I want to extrude it in 3D or whether I want to work in plan view, either way, I have that option. So let's do it. Let's stay in plan view for like maybe the first 20 minutes or so. And I can talk and draw at the same time, I think.
Yeah, like chewing gum and walking, right?
One thing I do, and I probably shouldn't do for this, is this is fun. So this is where it slows me down. Is things like, oh, that window up there, at least in this drawing, is not centered above the window behind it. So if we were being like, I kind of check those things because I kind of want to know, like, if it should be centered, I want to center it, and if it's not supposed to be centered, then I won't worry about it. So in this case, I'm not going to worry about it.
Yeah, that was one of the things that came up with Aaron's model as he was modeling last week, and one of his comments was how not quite symmetrical the houses were. Mm-hmm. So it's not like you can model half of it and then mirror. You have to be very specific to the reference images you're using, and that's what he was doing. So
the other thing I have to make a decision about is how accurate I want to be to real world dimensions. Now, if I was modeling this, you can see I stuck within this frame, but that's because I gave this a nice round number. If I check this, that's 1.5 feet. But the drawing itself is, if I push this over just a little bit, and I check that dimension again, it's going to be a really weird number. 1 foot 7 inches, 1.25 inch. I think at this point I should probably, for sake of speed, not worry about drawing in real world dimensions. But something I cover in my campus course is that if you have the time and you know that this window is probably, instead of 3.962 feet, it's probably 4 feet, right? So just go that extra mile and give it the 4 feet, even if the reference image is a little bit different. So one thing I want to do is
it also helps that we're not going to be building this, so those exact dimensions aren't as critical as if we were going to be actually constructing this building.
Yeah, speaking of construction, you're right. I think I'm just going to go a little bit quicker just to kind of get something together, and then I really want to spend some more time in 3D. So for those that know, who've seen me model too, one thing you'll know, and I'm more than happy to take blame or credit for this, but I do better when I'm prepared. And this is one where I'm going to give you a little warning because I haven't rehearsed it, I haven't practiced it, I haven't even thought about it. So this will be, this will be exciting. I like those challenges once in a while, but I also like knowing what I'm doing as well.
It's moments like these that keep the live interesting, right?
Yeah. So right now I'm just blocking all of this out because what I really want to do is just kind of, you can see that once you have a certain number of lines, and actually I need to go back and I wonder how Aaron does this. I didn't catch all of his stream. Shh, don't tell him. I just caught a little bit of it. So as far as how Aaron handles, once you have a certain amount of line work already drawn, it tends to go a little bit quicker because you can do things like offsetting. You can offset existing lines. Often what I'll do is just be offsetting lines like crazy in this case. Like I'll just pull this down, and then here I'd offset this, and then just pull this down. So in this case, I'm really just using the line work that's already there rather than just drawing everything, completely from scratch. So just need kind of enough to get going, and then I'm going to switch over to 3D. One thing I want to be careful about, though, and one thing I probably should have been a little bit more careful about, is thinking about this. I already know that this whole front piece projects. So something I could have done if I was a little bit more paying attention is come over here, and I can do this after the fact, but it may be easy to do now, is to group this. And the reason why is, or make that a component, is because in this case, I know that this is going to project off the surface. So sometimes what you want to do is if you have pieces that you know, otherwise when you start push-pulling things, do you know what I mean? It can be, yeah, I probably wanted to push-pull that first. That's okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that's all right. We'll, yeah, let me know. How do you do it? How do you do it, guys and gals?
Mod from the chat says, got to keep the number simple. Kind of talking back to, rounding up if you need to round up, round down if you need to round down, just making it as easy as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. This will be fun. I'll just draw this now. But also things like, this isn't a good example of just little tips and tricks. Like I could do this arc first, or back from my CAD days is you actually do the arc last. What you do is you'll draw the two lines on either side of an arc. And then what you'll do is figure out where the arc becomes tangent, which a tangent means that it turns that, you should be able to get it magenta, but yeah, in this case, it's blue. So that's like a little tip where you can also use the fillet tool, which I think I introduced last time I was doing. I think I might have done that. Did I use the fillet tool? I think I did when we were doing the last live stream, which was Highline, for those that, yeah. All right. Let's see, where are we at here? Why is that line there? Now this is here where I'm already starting to think about what can be a component and what shouldn't be. So this window here, I'm going to make this a component, and I'm going to assume, and I hope, that if I drag this down, this window fits exactly in here. And again, I drew this with real world proportions, or real world dimensions. So if I want to shift that over slightly to kind of fit the model, I'm just going to go ahead and break my own rules there. That one here, this is where it gets tricky. This is where it gets tricky, is this window is not exactly the same as this one. I'm going to pretend like they are for this example. And then this is also where
the beauty of it is you can do you. You do you.
I'm going to do me. This is also where I think Aaron did a pretty good job at kind of explaining like how to model just half of something. And that's something that I'm still working on as far as getting better at, is how I might draw the whole arc. Like here, I drew this whole arc, and then but I only really want half of this. So what I'm going to do is just kind of use that line as a temporary. I'll use that full arc, just temporarily. Yeah. And where's my tangent? Although that's a little bit off here, so I'll clean that up. Yeah. All right. So I don't need that. Don't need that. Don't need that. Now I have half of this. Now I have to do this inside corner because, yeah, so this is where I'm already starting to think about. I don't know if this is going to work or not, but I'm just going to go ahead and try it, which is to start thinking about doing only half of something, knowing that when I do it again. Oh, did that not? Oh, this happens to me all the time. Does this happen to you where I think I'm copying something, but I'm actually moving? I see the little plus sign, but for some reason the little plus sign goes away. I have to double check that I actually did make a copy of that. Yeah, there we go.
So out of curiosity, do you find that it would save time if you only modeled half of something and then, flipped it or mirrored it or, whatever process you need to, as opposed to just modeling the piece in its entirety?
It depends. Sometimes it should save time, but it depends on what it is. Sometimes it just makes sense just to do the whole thing. It's not worth the time because even if it just takes a minute to set it up, copy it, flip it, in this case, it may not even be worth that. So what's cool about this, though, is that you start to pay dividends down the road. So the more right now, it's not quite sure, but as you get later and later, like in this case, I'll I'll come into this window component, right? I'll actually take this overhead one and I'll go into the window component and I'll place that in there, and you'll see that it copied up to this one as well. So that's nice. So this one here, in fact, I'm actually going to go do this one more time. I'm going to get rid of that window now that I think about it. And this is where it gets a little bit tricky, because you can see what you're doing is I'm splitting the whole thing. I think Aaron did this. He split the whole thing, but then at some point had to explode it. So I'm only starting with half. But what I'm going to have to do is, because especially like this window right here, like I want to use the same, and I just did it again. Did you see that as I was talking? I hit the modifier and I go to copy it, and for some reason the modifier like forgets. There. All right, let's see how we're doing. If I click over to my view scene, I set up a view scene and a trace scene, and that's because I like to kind of go back and forth pretty quickly between how it's coming along. So yeah, 15 minutes, it's okay. This is where I think too, speaking of which, Donovan, if I just pull this out just a little bit, and then I don't even know how far that needs to be. Window, soften edges, soften coplanar. And I'm not worried about the seam right now. I'm gonna do the seam at the end. And this is kind of fun too, because if I just start to push pull, I could push pull out towards me, or I can push in away from me. So on typical window, this is where I'm just making this up. Or if I wanted to, I could go pop in. I'm lucky that I have Aaron. I have Aaron, so I could go back and say, Aaron, what did you do for this? If I want to match yours. You went in 2 inches. You went in another 2 inches. And then your actual frame, you did, I'm just going to say 1/2 inch on that. So I could just steal from him. Is that stealing?
Because you have not only reference material for the building you're making, but building that was already modeled. So
yeah,
use what you got.
Yeah, so I'm going to just do something like that for now, and then you can.
So I had a quick question. So you were talking about using the modifier to copy. I primarily use SketchUp for iPad. And so do you have to hold down the modifier key, or do you just have to tap it and it should copy it rather than just move it?
Yeah, you should tap it once, right? So if I wanted to move this window and I hit Option, and you can see the little plus sign, if you look close, you can see the little plus sign pops up, and then it copies it. But I've found, and maybe it's just me, but I found that the latest version of 2023 is a little bit more particular. Like, I'll give you an example. When I go to do my scale tool, which I know I'm not supposed to do because we have this great new flip tool, but sometimes I'll still do it the old-fashioned way, which is scaling and then typing in -1, just because old habits die hard. And then if you hit the Option on a Mac modifier, you can see that scale should be going by the middle, and it is now. You just click it once, so I'm not holding it. But I found that one in particular too. See if I started the scale and I press Option, sometimes it lost it. It's losing it. There, now it found it. I don't know why. So I'm sorry guys, but Dev, if you didn't know that already, check that out. Dev team, it's so complex and there's so many cool new features and things. I have to just point out that I appreciate it. So this is funny. This is interesting. I actually made this window after the fact. So this window here, you know what I did? I actually, as I was doing that little demo, what did I do? Did I actually scale it and I didn't want to? I did. This is what happens when you...
That's all right.
This is what happens
in SketchUp, you can undo up to 100 times. So
yes, that's right. Fun fact to quiz your friends on. So this is interesting. I actually have a component within a component, and I have one down here. So instead of making one unique, I'm actually going to go in and steal the window component inside of that other one and bring that down. And that's going to be my component. In this case, I'm going to let that position of this component override this position. So I'm going to actually just slide this over. And I'm just going to cheat that a little bit. And if I wanted to slide this whole thing over just a little bit, just to even that up. There we go. So you can see I'm letting the size of the existing components sort of tell me. Yeah, I'm going to save. No one's called me out on that one yet. So save. And let's take a quick look at, because I am starting already to do sort of the articulation on it, but I guess it would help me to know what the heck that I'm doing. That's Aaron's, so that's curved. I'm glad I'm not dealing with that curve. This should be a little bit easier till I get up to this pitched roof part, because it does, what do you call that style? It's not, is it mansard, like it's French when it tilts like that?
Yeah, I was going to ask, is there a specific building style that these buildings fall under? Because you have the Victorian style kind of castle accents on the one that on the one that Aaron did, but
it also looks Italianate too, as well, but with a little bit of like this Victorian flair. I don't know. That's a good question. Maybe someone in the chat can go do some digging on. If you want to be more specific, I can tell you what the names are. We're at the B. Cleves house. No wonder they look the same. So B. Cleves and T. Cleves. So they must be relatives. They got the same house next to each other. And Ackerman. So if somebody wants to look those up, more than happy to pass along what we learned. So this is 2, 2, and then the frame is the 1. So I'm going to double check that. And then this one is really hard to tell because it's a little pixelated, but this looks like it's sort of flush with the brick, but it looks like the lintel, is that correct? Lintel, which is the little piece that is at the base of the window. And this looks to come out about, I'm probably going to say 6 inches. And then it looks like it steps, these step back maybe by a series of 2, 1, 2, 3. And then, yeah, these maybe sit half an inch above the surface just so that there's a little bit of a shadow, but this looks relatively flush as far as that concrete, that sort of poured in place or cast in place concrete work.
Peter from the YouTube chat says it's a Georgian style house.
Georgian, okay.
Georgian.
What did Aaron do for these windows here? It looks like they're only showing 1 frame, but I think if you look at the actual window itself, it has sort of 2 frames. It has the wood frame, and it has the sort of inner frame that holds the pane in. Do you see what this is? It's got this big colored pane, and then it's got the actual window pane. So this is set in twice. And I'm not really seeing that in the drawing.
I wonder if there was a different type of window that was in there that then got replaced with
Yeah, because you'll notice this. You see how it doesn't have that inner, it just looks really thin. We could fix that ourselves. Remember, I always say this to people. Remember, like, it's your model. So I think it's okay to have artistic license. I'm a big fan of artistic license. One thing I need to do is when you have a component in here, this is a little bit annoying, but you do have to go in and take the time to cut out the face. So you couldn't see that I had revealed those. So, or you can just copy this up, and then that way I'm just kind of cutting that face out. Okay. So instead what I'm going to do is come back into here. I'm going to undo this by bringing this in. What did I do here? That's only 1 inch, so I'm going to go back in another 3. That makes 4 inches, yeah. No, I'm just going to go, yeah, let's go, I don't know, let's go 2. 4, that felt a little fat. So a little trick, 1, 2, 3. If you have a line that's continuous like this and you want to delete the whole thing, it's really difficult because if you click 3 times, you're going to get a bunch of stuff. But if you just delete one part of the line and then click twice, 1, 2, or click 3 times, you get the whole rest of the line. So I always almost just, if I have a really complex, like when I'm working with contours, I have a really complex line, I'll just go ahead and delete part of that. I'm going to move my chat box up, sorry, to keep messing with this. It's because...
Speaking of chat, Steven from the YouTube chat popped in and said lintel is the top of a door or
it's the
window.
top.
So
okay, what? Yeah, and the bottom is, I should know this. It's like, because it's pretty standard nomenclature, but...
Sill?
The sill. Yeah, that makes sense. That would be the sill. I didn't know if the outside sill was called something else from an inner sill, but I think it's the same, isn't it? Not afraid to look sound stupid on live television. Okay. All right, that looks better. Do you think that looks more like what it looks like in the image? But is it, yeah, I think so. Let's go look at that again. Except you know what I need to do? I took 2 images on purpose. This one and that one and the other one. It looks like it doesn't, this little frame, this inner frame, it stops. It only goes up, it's only 3-sided because the window touches the sill and the sill comes out. So I think that's where it breaks. So it recesses once, recesses twice, and then the sill projects out. And it looks like these other little concrete details sit flush, but I might give them like, half an inch just to sort of make it feel a little bit more dynamic. But yeah.
Oh, those almost look like, I don't know, box fans or something in those windows. Something on the bottom.
Yeah, those are called, I think they're swamp coolers.
Swamp coolers.
Yeah, right? I mean,
Brandon imagine from the chat says, wow, what a great hack. Sorry, Aaron.
What was that? The hack with the double click the line thing by deleting one line or triple clicking? Hey, you know what? Whenever I learn something new.
Peggy said, I think the outer 3-sided frame is beveled.
Is beveled. The outer 3-sided frame. Oh, well, I don't think I'm going to bevel it, at least not yet. So, Keggy, thanks for making this harder for me. I appreciate it. Love that you're with us. I'm going to try and keep things a little bit easier. I'm going to go 0.5 on this, and I'm going to go 0.5. This is for the actual, I don't know what this is. I always forget. Yeah. All right, this should be here. So I should be able to delete that. I should be able to delete that. And I should be able to push the window down in 1. Which gets a little bit tricky when you're doing it in X-ray mode. Oh, I think I lost this line on the inside. But the nice thing about, there we go. Is that there? I'm going to go back to not X-ray mode. All right, so this one here. Yeah, I lost it somehow. Here's how I'm going to try and fix this. Let's see if this works. I'm going to do push-pull, only I'm going to hold the option on the Mac modifier, and I'm going to pull this down 1 inch. Yeah, 1 inch. There we go. And that way I just kind of overrode that little mistake that I made. And since this window should be split here in order to actually open, this part would actually be lower. One thing I have a good bad habit of doing is cleaning up my lines as I go. I know that takes longer, but I do try to keep clean geometry whenever I can. So let's do this just for fun. Let's take this half here. I have to pull these 2 windows out. I'm going to make them a group. I'm going to copy them. I'm going to place them outside of this component. This is a component. So I'm already going to copy this and just start to feel like I'm making more progress by mirroring that and popping that in place. So now when I go back to my view mode and I get to look at it sort of in street view style. Oh, let's see here. I know a shortcut for that. This is a component and this is a component. So sometimes what I'll do, so for those that saw me do the Highline one, I'll take this. Oh, okay. I have to do that the opposite. This is the outer shell component. So in order to not have to flip this, it's actually easier at this point. I was going to try and show you a trick, but it's actually easier just to copy this thing up 90 degrees. Yeah. No, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. Watch this. So I'm drawing in 2D, but I want to see what it looks like tilted. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these things, I'm going to copy, I'm going to undo that, pretend like I didn't do that. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to select everything and I'm going to make that a component. So this is where I start to do my inception joke that I always do with this a component inside of a component inside of a component. And if you go 3 levels deep, then we can pretty much do whatever we want, but we can start planting some seeds. So now when I copy this, because I'm copying a component inside of a component, I don't actually have to tilt it because it's already going to do the work twice. It's going to do it once on the ground and it's going to do once tilted up. So that's kind of cool. I think that's kind of cool.
Peter from the chat said many of the replacement windows in the row of houses are double hung sash windows with no muntins. Am I saying that right?
How is it that you and I always we get to learn? Didn't we do this not the last time, but the time
I know.
before? We learned like so much about the historic architecture terms. Was it the Haunted Mansion one that we were doing?
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna
Yeah.
put my chat back down. Sorry, I moved it because it was blocking my reference image was blocking it. So
And then George says, "Can you send us this image?" I believe this image is in the forum post, correct?
should be in the forum post. So George,
Yep.
if you're the same one that asked for it last time, I thought we gave you an answer. If we didn't, I apologize. We post stuff in the forum because we can't post links. It's not usually a great idea to post a bunch of links in the YouTube, especially if we don't know where something came from, or if you have to download it from somewhere. Oftentimes we'll put it in the forum. So find this Chapline Row live stream under happenings, and we'll post not only this, but also the link to the finished model and stuff like that. So definitely do that. All right, let's keep going here. As I go to, I like to just give it a little bit of a transparency on the windows. You can't really see it, so if you want to make it a little bit more opaque. I also model in, I often do hidden line style, so maybe that's a sort of a bad habit of mine. If I switch back to texture mode, see hidden line will knock out the gray windows. You'll still get the transparency, but you won't see that they're gray, so it differentiates from the facade. So what I might do is just go in and actually select this style, switch from hidden line over to my shaded without textures and update that. That way I start to see the textures. All right, let's start pushing and pulling some more stuff. These, I said, don't really sit above the surface, so I'm actually going to push this back down. I'm just going to push it just slightly off the surface just to give it a little bit. Let's do some detail. What do you think, Donovan? Let's look at our reference image over here.
And it's amazing with, you know, just a little amount of modeling how it looks like it's already coming together.
Yeah, what's nice about these, okay, I'll say this about historic architecture, and it's that things are symmetrical, not always, but they typically are proportional, and they typically are symmetrical, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's a good thing. So there's my stance on architecture. I like actually when things line up and you get the sense of pattern and you get the sense of repetition. I think there's a lot of beauty and value in continuing to do that. So there you go. I've got the door inset. The door is going to kind of be inset, so I can do that. The other thing is, I think this is where it's going to probably give me the most trouble. So personally, I think this is where we should go next. And you can see that they're slightly different, but the bones are all the same. The colors are different, and the detailing is different, but for the most part, the big moves are the same. So I'm going to go, it doesn't matter really which one I look at for this upper part. I'm going to go ahead and do that. This is going to be tricky. So I'm probably going to want to move this reference image just to make it so I don't have to bounce around quite so much as I'm doing this. I'm just going to bring this a little closer. How's that, folks? Is that all right? Can we do that?
We can do that.
We can do that. I'm always waiting for Donovan's approval. So he's like, why do I need to approve everything? It's just because
That is why I'm here, right? Right? Support,
yeah,
approval,
exactly. It also means I don't have to make so many decisions. Like when you're modeling, you have to make a lot of decisions and on the fly. Okay, speaking of decisions, I'm just totally making this next part up here. So this is, did I get that whole thing? Did I get everything, or did I miss some stuff? Because this is probably where I need to go in and finish this out. Little trick if you want to make sure that this distance between here and here is the same, instead of copying a line over, because I don't even know what that distance is, just copy the entire face over. And I know that that'll be symmetrical, whether it lines up with the image or not.
We did have a question coming in from Facebook asking about the different ways to copy, showing us the different ways to copy. Can you show us the different ways to copy?
Well, I will show you my favorite ways. Is that okay? The easiest way is the move modifier to me. So that the move modifier, for those that, again, haven't seen what I've been doing this whole time, if you have a line over here and you hit switch to the move tool, you can look at my keycaster, it's my keyboard shortcuts, but we'll switch to the move tool. And then if you hit a modifier, which I believe is control on a PC, option on a Mac, you can cycle through 2 different ways to copy. So one of them is the plus sign. So that creates 1 copy. So if I select this and I hit move plus option control, I can make 1 copy of this line that I'm doing off to the side. The second way to do that using the modifier is to hit M option option. And this is really hard to see, but that icon is a stamp. And what it does is it allows you to just freeform stamp. That's really cool. Now, of course, I'm doing that way off into distance, into outer space, because I'm just not really paying attention to what I'm doing. Another copy that I use all the time is I'll copy something. Like, for example, I'll copy something like this. I'm using the keyboard shortcuts for copy. I'll delete it. Maybe I'm going to do some work and it's easier to delete it than it is to hide it. Got to be careful about this one, though, because maybe it's better to hide it. But then I'll come up here and say edit, paste in place. So paste in place, pastes it right back in place. And that's good. So the reason to do that might be as if I was going into a component. So in this case, let me show you an example, a better example, rather than just deleting it. If I was going to go into this component and I wanted this face, I would copy it, and then I would pop out of the component, and I'm going to use a keyboard shortcut, paste in place, and there it is. So to me, paste in place is a great way to move information in and out of groups and components. There's always just the edit, copy, paste. Which I think is the one I use probably the least often, which is because it's to me the least useful. Copy, paste. And when you paste, it puts it in at the cursor. So you get 1 copy, and then you have to place it manually wherever you want. It's not to say that that's not useful. I'm just saying that in this case, in this situation that we're in right now, it's not as useful. Hopefully that was helpful. Facebook, welcome to the group. Okay. I'm going to make this a component here. So this whole thing is just going to be one big component. Okay, so that's a component. -1. Now, you know who's a master at this, or who I should say is very good at this method. I saw in 2018 Chris Rosewarne. If you want to type that in at home, don't do it now. Stay with me. But later, go type in Chris Rosewarne, because he does film props. He's worked for Mission Impossible. He's, I think, done some Marvel movies, James Bond. So some really cool stuff. And don't quote me if I'm wrong there. Those are the kinds of movies that he works on. He does some really amazing prop design. And he literally just uses components and flips them around. And it's absolutely incredible how much detail you can get just by taking just 1/8 of something or 1/16 of something and mirroring it and flipping it. And all of a sudden you push 1 line, like you said, Donovan, you push 1 line and the whole thing just, comes to life. It's just really neat. So here's an example. I'm outside of the component. Here's an example of when I would use when I might use paste in place. I'm outside of the component, and then at some point, I'm going to have to go back inside of the component. It's really hard to see what's going on here. And I'll give you an example here. So there's that. I'm just going to take that, copy that, delete it, go into this component, paste it in place. There you go. So that's a reason why to use that. One of these days it would be fun to start a live stream with like all this tracing done. I think are some good tips that we can share with the group, and I'm definitely happy to answer more questions. But at the same time, like some days it could be nice to just like have the tracing done and just say, hey, here's some tracing I did on my own time.
So what kind of model would you want to have the tracing done, and like what would you spend the 2 hours in our lives when we do lives? What would you spend that time doing?
Just more model, like getting more detailing into the 3D part of it. So like looking at things like the Follow Me tool and creating component arrays, and maybe even sculpting tools for organic geometry. Just spending more time on the actual modeling stuff. One thing I have to be careful here is when you're in plan view, when you're in X-ray mode, sometimes things aren't flat. So every now and then it's a good idea just to go into like elevation mode. If you're already in parallel projection and you turn off your reference image, you can just kind of come over here, and sometimes it's helpful just to kind of double check and make sure that everything is where it needs to be, because it can easily in X-ray mode start snapping to things that are either below the surface or above the surface. So looks like we're okay. I'm going to continue on. Save.
Let's do it.
Save. Yeah.
Save.
Save.
I was just about to say that. Save.
All right. I want to do one of these windows here. This is where I'm just giving myself enough geometry to kind of be dangerous. And then, so let's just finish this, spend a couple minutes just finishing this one. And then I think the fun part is going to be, again, when we get into the 3D. Here's a little tip here. Like there, you can see there's a face behind the component. Sometimes when I double click on a component, I end up going into the face. I've learned to just sometimes hit the return key. And so what the return key does is it enters into the component without having to double click. So I know that other people use hide rest of model. I don't use hide rest of model, but if I really, that really confuses me when I'm in a component and the rest of the model disappears. I get really lost really quick. So I'll be the first to admit that maybe that's a better idea and I don't do it. All right, so continuing on. This is tricky because sometimes you can see here how this arc broke. So if I wanted to offset this arc, I might have to come in and finish this arc first. Again, just as temporary geometry, and then come in and offset this so I get a much cleaner surface. The problem I'm getting here is that I'm only doing half of the component. So the other way, so even if I do an offset like this, I'm still only going to get half of it. So just be aware of that. Right? You get what I'm saying? Weld.
Yep. I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Yeah, good. And offset down there. I don't know what this is, and I don't know how I'm going to sculpt this in more detail, but again, here is something where I might go over and do the whole arc and then just delete half of it. And the reason why is because I'm only modeling half the component. So I only need half this arc. But you can't draw half an arc very easily. You kind of need to draw the whole arc. And then from there you can delete it. That wasn't perfect. At this point,
Kegi is asking, he says Eric doesn't use the new flip tool very much. Is he not keen on it, or is it just that previous experience makes the scale by -1 quicker?
Yeah, it's not a keen thing. I think that that tool is long overdue, and I think that it's designed really well. I'll say that, and not because I have to toe the company line, but because I think that it's good. I just don't use it. Habits. That's all. No excuses.
And we did have a comment coming in from Facebook. Mark is asking, is there an auto trace plugin?
Not like this. Not like this. Let's see here. Hang on. Let me see. Does this work? How would I? Yeah, I see what you're getting at. That would make sense. That would be cool. But the problem is stuff like that is that it's just not smart enough. It's like using the AI as your render engine. It's just not. How do I get this one? I wish there was an extend arc tool. So like in this case, I've got this. I think the only way to extend this arc properly would be to come in here, find the center point of this arc, and then rotate a copy. So this is one where I might just come over here and I just might just copy those because I want to keep, at this point, I just want to keep the segment count the same. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And then the other thing you can do is, so what I'm just going to do is grab, I'm going to explode this curve, and then I'm just going to grab like the number of segments that I need, and I'm just going to copy that, and I'm just going to grab that. That's not really, ideally the way to do it, but that's what I'm going to do.
Kegi says offset from the outer arc might work.
No, the outer arc, Oh, no, because the outer arc is, it goes smaller as you go. You can do that when you go out, but you can't do that when you go in, because when you go, that's how I got this here, right? So if I take this, well, that's all right. I got it. Thank you, Keggy. Maybe that works. Maybe I'm missing something. All right, I just wanted to get enough in there. I think I've got enough in there to be dangerous. That's always my goal.
Paul's from the YouTube comment section said, after I commented on the flip tool about a month or so ago, I forced myself to use it and didn't even notice when it became the preferred method in my workflow.
Well, and that is exactly what I know where I'll be, soon. Okay, so let's see here. Speaking of flipping things, it's not actually flipping, it's rotating. What I want to do is rotate a copy of this. I don't know what the degrees is for this thing. What do you think that is? 10 degrees? Just say yes.
Yeah, I don't think it would be any more than that.
What I'm going to do is now I'm going to delete that surface that I worked so hard on, and that's...
Just say yes.
So that
I'm here to support.
So that we could keep this thing going. So now what I need to do is figure out how to get that face back there. So this part is not rotated here. And this part is going to have a thickness. It's going to go back. Do you see what that is? Does that look about right? That's 10 degrees. I think that looks pretty close. And I did this wrong. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, yeah.
All right, this needs to come back. So I'm going to rotate this, and it needs to be the same 10 degrees. So that's kind of fun. One thing I'm trying to get better at with is a bit more confidence with rotating and messing with vertices. Like I learned recently that you can actually drag an endpoint. See that? So you can create like stretched geometry. That's kind of cool. Versus when you grab a line, it pulls everything. But you can actually select just that endpoint, and you can make these really cool micro adjustments, which something I'm trying to get better at. All right, let's do this. I'm just going to push for right now. I'm just going to push this through. If you get that hollow opening like that, which I don't like, I'm going to double check really quick to make sure that I don't have any reverse faces. So for those that know, if you know, you go into monochrome mode, then you can see I do have one reverse face when I was restitching that piece. So I'll fix that first, and then I think we're good. And sorry I have to go in and out of these components. It is a bit annoying, but one thing I can do here is use the push-pull with the modifier. So this is another example of what I'm going to do is copy those little lines that I already drew because they're going to annoy me. I'm going to copy them and delete them because what I want to do is push this whole face in. So I'm going to copy those, delete them, and I'm going to push this whole face in at once using the modifier. And I want to make sure that this upper edge, this upper point goes through the roof. If I wanted to, I could do solid tools if I knew that was solid and I wanted to do that individually. Or I think something Aaron does pretty well is just taking this piece here and then just right-clicking it and say intersect faces with model. And then that should slice it, and I should just slice and dice and keep going. This is actually not my area of expertise, is doing this kind of stuff. So this is actually fun for me.
So Peter chimed in and says, I think that witnessing the process of tracing a source image, such as today's exercise, is very intuitive on its own. And then Paul's followed up and said, the individual vertex bothering is so useful when repairing and correcting holes in 3D models.
Yep. Yeah, just being able to have that sort of literally point level, vertex level control. I think that's 0.5. No, I'm going to go with 1 on that one. And then I'm going to go, I'm going to go 1 on that one. Yeah. So this is when, I'll tell you right now, we've had this conversation before, I know in the past, about what like your music is, what kind of music people like to model to. This is the kind of modeling that is kind of actually quite fun to do when you're just like listening to music and you don't have to worry about anything. You just go for it. Styles, I want to change this to, yeah, This is what I want to change this to, and I want to update this view. Okay, what did I do there? That should be, okay, this should be my window color. Yeah, there it is. Do you think this window is the same as these two windows? This one, these should be the same, right? This one, this one, this one, and this one. They should all be the same.
I don't see why it wouldn't be, right?
Good answer, because that saves me time. Little trick, you can deselect. If you select too much, you can just double click, and unselect all the stuff that I didn't actually mean to select. So what I'm going to do is make that a component, copy it, delete it. This is also where you can come in here and take this plane and say intersect faces with model. If I wanted to, oh, I see. It doesn't actually intersect with the model because I didn't go far enough there. Okay.
So Alexis or Alexi, I don't know how you pronounce your name. If I pronounce it wrong, I'm sorry. But he chimed in the comments, said, when I was a child, I played with video game engines, Gold Source. Playing with the vertices was dangerous because you could ruin the entire model or crash the engine. Since then, I've had that fear. I haven't heard of Gold Source. Have you heard of Gold Source?
No. No. So what was the context again? What was the first part of that as far as, video game modeling?
He said when he was a child, he played with video game engines. Like, I'm assuming using the video game engine to create models and things like that. And he said when he was playing with vertices, you can crash the video game engine.
Well, I think that's a good. Lesson then. Since I don't, I can't say. This is a bit of a trick here. I have to figure out how to do this because what I did was I kind of made a boo-boo. Because I didn't make this a component first, I have to place this window here, and then I have to set it there. And then I have to say intersect faces with model. And if I'm lucky, I could go in and delete that and delete. That one didn't delete. So I'll just move that down. Things that I could do a whole series on just things I wish I knew. Things I wish I knew when I first started modeling. I'll tell you one right now is the left select, right select. Now this makes me sound like an idiot, and I'm okay because again, I don't mind admitting that there's things I don't know on live TV, but it took me maybe like 2 years. I was working in an architecture firm at the time, and I was watching this guy do that. He did that left select thing. Oh man. Just because I never took any like tutorials. I'm just one of those people who just goes in and starts playing around. And then of course that means I did it wrong for years. Yeah. So for those that haven't gone and taken like SketchUp Campus fundamentals lessons, there's my plug. There's my plug for that.
Yeah, I was about to say there probably wasn't, access to a whole lot of tutorials at that time, but there is now, like on.
Are you saying
like campus.
Are you saying I'm old? No, I'm just kidding.
No.
Actually there wasn't. I don't know. I don't even know what options there were, to be honest with you. This was back in, to date me, this was back in, I don't know, 2000 and actually there probably was more stuff then, back in like 2009, so there was definitely, people were using SketchUp and it was pretty well known. I started back in 2005 in college, and that's when nobody that I knew really did much with it. This is going to be tricky. This one's different. No, they're the same. Oh, this looks different from the drawing though. Well, what do I do? Do I copy the drawing, or do I just look at the actual design?
I would look at the design.
Oh, I see. No, I'm looking at the wrong one. That's the middle. That's the big one. I'm looking at this little one. So I'm inverting that. That's interesting. So this little, it's like a little, almost like a clamshell or a fan. I'm sure there's a term for that. Oh, this is going to be tough, folks.
I just had a weird idea. I wonder if it would be possible to set up set up a live with like you, Eric, and Aaron, to go back and to use like the early versions of SketchUp and see how well you can model using like SketchUp 2017, or like some of the, if we could even get our hands on some of those old versions of SketchUp, because of how used we are to, you know, all the new features and the abilities and things like that. If you were to go back and use like the OG SketchUp, would you still be able to, you
I
know?
would say you should be okay, to be honest with you. And the reason
Yeah.
why I say that is, and I say that now because it's easy to say it when it's theoretical. Because you know, once you've set keyboard shortcuts and if you're using native tools, right? I mean, a lot of
Yeah.
I mean, and I mean that's good. People complain that like SketchUp hasn't advanced as much as some of the other software, but like the reality is that in a good way, the core features are still there. They don't keep monkeying about and keep changing things for no reason. So, um,
I only bring that up because there's conversation going on in the YouTube comments about Gold Source, and people are talking about editing Quake levels, which made me think of a game I played as a little kid called GoldenEye, and how much I loved that game as a kid. But then going like being accustomed to now the games that are out nowadays, going back and playing that game is very hard. It's very hard just because of how different the style and, you know, how different it is. And so that got me thinking of like, well, how hard would it be if we went back to like those early versions of SketchUp? Like, would you be able to model as quickly, or, you know, or be able to accomplish as much if, you know, if you're using the OG stuff? So that's where that idea came from.
it's an interesting
And as always,
concept. Yeah,
there's always a conversation going on in the YouTube comments.
love it.
So chime in if you have any thoughts on the subject or any questions. If you have questions for Eric, go ahead and you know, type them in. I'm the voice of the audience, so to speak. I bring your questions to Eric so that you can talk about it.
Yeah, speaking of questions, I didn't really catch this. This is open here. So that arc that I spent so much time trying to close, I shouldn't have. So now I have to rethink. Okay, let me look at that again. This picture is not super great. Maybe if I can see if I can do this live. I had this as a backup. I didn't know if that was better because SketchUp sort of pixelates a little bit. It has to, so it reduces the image size when you have large images. So sometimes it's better to actually just look at it from the source. Yeah, this sort of looks like this goes down way more tiers. There's way more detail than was drawn in the drawing. I'm going to stick with what the drawing shows, but I do see that these go down by what look like little 1-inch reveals, and it looks like it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe even 7 times, but then halfway through it has this landing here. So maybe on the second, after the second reveal, I keep the arches and then I go to the landing. And then I would love to get into more intricate details and look at things like using artisan and sculpting and stuff like that, but probably not going to do that today. So what I want to do is maybe just keep this simple for right now and then just push this back in and then pull this in, try and just keep this like somewhat parallel, and then push that back in and then let that be what it is. Yeah, from a distance. If you looked at it at a distance, kind of starting to pick up that. Definitely needs some more work. Okay. Whew. Let's get this roof finished, and some
it is
of
looking
this
good.
and some of these other details. You can see that there's a detail like this comes out. This has like this pop projects out a little bit. So this is where I'm just going to have to just literally look at it and think, oh man, I think that's right about there. Let's see. Oh, I see. It's the middle piece. So I kind of want to come in here. Oh, so one way to do this is to kind of find the center point and just draw a temp line. What I want to do is find the center point of this kind of column here. So there it is there. So, and then I could copy this line here out to the center point by using a keyboard, using my modifier, you know who's really good at that? I always like to give Tyson props for that. It's teaching me really the power of inference locking. And then what you can do is create a plane. Now I can have a plane that I know will lock to that red axis. So if I wanted to split that, I could split that. And I could push this in to there. And I could push this. This one I might need to intersect. Oh, here's where it gets really tricky. You may want to just select all of this. Say intersect with selection. I hope that doesn't mess me up too bad. And then now I split this face. So now I can sort of push this one in, and I can push this in just a little bit. I'm just going to go with 1 inch. So this whole one sits 1 inch shy of this other one. And so this, I don't need this one. That plane was just so that I knew, so I could split that. Didn't really want to split that there. That was actually the center point. So for those that didn't catch that, that was me screwing up. I actually want to move those. So let's see if I can do this. This is why you want to group things, folks. Let's see if I can move that without messing. Oh, let's see, how do I want to do this? I'm just going to group this, and I'm just going to move it so it stays protected. And that I pulled out. I'm going to go with 1.5 inches. So I'm going to copy that there, and I'll copy it again, 1.5, and those two I don't need. All right, so now all we need to do is just pull. I had to sort of do this backwards. Now I have to just use push-pull to pull these over to here. And then what's nice about that, if it's the same distance, double-click, 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 and I can get rid of this little reference geometry that I was using. And then these two probably pulled out further than I was supposed to. I'm going to go with an... Oh, I just made those up. That's why. This is why you don't make things up, folks. I'm going to undo that. I'm going to actually give it... This is why you give it real-world dimensions. If I want to pull that over 2, and then I want to pull that over 1, and then actually I'm going to go with 2.5, 2.5, 1.5, and then the last one I'm going to pull out 0.5. Because when you actually use like real dimensions rather than just tracing what you see in the image, then it helps you. Because then now if I wanted to actually mirror that, I know that that comes out 2.5, and I know that that comes out 1.5, and I know that that comes out 0.5. Right?
Which makes me wonder, it's like when they used to model and when they used to do all of this on, you know, pencil and paper way back in the day before these modeling capabilities were done, like how precise would they have to get in the model, in the design, you know, on paper before building? Or were these designers on site working with the people constructing it to make adjustments on the fly, or if everything... I don't know. I don't know that much about like architectural history and like how that part of the process was done, but because really you're drawing on top of these, you know, on top of these reference images. Some of the lines aren't straight. Not everything's, you know, symmetrical, but it looks a little bit different than the, you know, the finished photographic, you know, house we have here. So I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud.
Yeah. Oh, good. You're not. I was going to say, don't actually ask me because I couldn't answer.
Oh, no, I just, yeah.
So you can see how that inverted, right? So when I say inverted, I mean, you see how it went. It's now reversed. So this is where, if it does that, you use the modifier on push pull, and what it does is it creates a copy. So you're actually creating a copy of this face first, and then you're extruding that. So just pro tip, folks. All right, I'm trying to see how far I can get because Aaron got the building done, and so I feel like, in a way, we're not really competitive. We're really supportive of each other here at SketchUp, but it's healthy to have a little bit of competition. This is what I'm looking at, in case you're wondering what I keep looking at. I'm looking at this little skinny piece here. It looks like it's got a little swoop, and then it kind of comes back out again. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm just trying to give it some cool details. It looks like it also comes in on the sides. So what I might want to do is just kind of split that face there and pull this from the roof. And then that way I can maybe even pull this out a little bit. This is where it gets a little bit funky. So if I pull this out not 2 feet, 2 inches. And then this is where This is what I don't. As landscape, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't do a lot of this kind of like surface, like working with objects and stuff. Um, I just want this arc right here. I don't want anything else. And I want this. So like, so this is kind of the fun part, but also the challenge for me. I'm going to say that I'm a little bit outside of my comfort zone. 90.
It's all right. It's how we go. It's why we do this, right? It's why we do these lives. What fun would it be to, be inside your comfort zone?
Yeah, this arc, what am I doing here? This is where it's like, oh, I see, because when I copied this, it didn't. So this is where I'm going to grab that vertex. And um, can I scale it? I might just redraw it, because at this point, like if it won't close, it's probably just easier. So one thing I learned from Tyson is that he told me if you're going to be drawing on stuff, you want to kind of draw a plane first. And then what you do is you draw your arc, like when you're doing follow me's and profiles and things like that. And then you draw your arc on that plane. And then you erase the other half of it. So this is where I'm going to try this. And this is where I say I don't know the answer to this. I'm going to try clicking on this. And I'm going to press the follow me. And I have no idea what's going to happen. And there it did it. It did what I wanted it to do. It picked up that corner. So I'll just stop talking. I did it. I knew exactly what I was doing.
The whole time, right?
The whole time. I do need to get in. Sorry about all the zooming. Sometimes what I'll do is switch to my field of view to 1, which I know drives some people nutty because it's not quite parallel projection. It just means that I get a much more accurate zoom. So if I wanted to come in here, group that, hide it, and then what I can do is sort of look. Oh, that's not going to work. Camera field of view.
Peter from the comment said, in pencil-drawn blueprints, the accuracy was illustrated more in the referenced detail drawings of the main scale drawings.
Oh, that's right.
Require the skill of varying line weights on the paper. Wow. Well, I can't imagine line weight when drawing, like that being such a crucial factor.
Yeah, you didn't go to draft. You didn't go to architecture school, did you, Donovan? So,
I did not.
So that's the idea of like drafting hierarchy and pen weights and stuff.
Yep, it's been a very instructional experience working for SketchUp because of how outside the industry I was before I started working here.
All right, I want to take this and intersect this with the model, because I want to take this little back group that you can't see, and I'm going to group it. I do my group delete. That's my other pro tip, folks. So when I do group delete, it means that it makes a copy of that back edge. So when you delete it, you don't lose your front face as well. So I need to do, I don't know, how are we doing on time? I didn't even check. We're 40 minutes in because I always like ramble for the first like 5 minutes. So I'm just going to stop and pause for a second and just see how we're doing. We have a doorway here, not a window, don't we? So at the very end, I'm going to have to make this right side unique. And the reason why I'm doing it at the very end is because I want to make sure I don't want to have to. The other option would be to make this an individual component, copy it, and then mirror it. So then the whole thing is unique now, and I'm just mirroring individual components. But in this case right now, it's like the only thing I think that's really unique is going to be that this is a door on this side. So I'll just do that last. I'll just make this component unique. So with that said, let's pop over into my trace view. I'm going to save this. I'm going to finish. Sorry for all my bouncing around. Let me see if I can switch to, see what 30 does. Sometimes 30 is a little bit smoother. It just depends on, again, how close you want to be. So what I'm going to do is I need to get this part just kind of extruded. So I'm just going to come into the back here. And what's nice about this is if you wanted to just kind of, let's see here. It doesn't want to push pull because there's a hidden line there. Oh, it's probably because I intersected some stuff. So when I intersected it, it's almost like it's acting, because then I softened it. So it's acting like, yeah, so it's not happy. It's okay. This whole thing, I was going to think, could I stretch it? No. I'm going to do this. I'm going to see if this works. I'm going to try to grab just, this is where actually coming in and being parallel projection works better. If I can figure out which view I want to be in, none of those. Not that one. Whoa, that's upside down. Oh, I know what happened. It's because it's relative to the component. So when you do your views, if you're in the component and your component has been rotated, it has a different axis, your standard camera views are going to get all messed up. So in this case, it works now that I've exited the component. What I wanted to do was to come in and grab just this. I thought this might be the easiest way to do it. Would be to grab just, and that's why I wanted to do parallel projection, because I needed just that line. And then I want to move, see if this will let me do this. Oh no, if I copy this, if I group this first, and then I move this whole thing. I want to move, that was what I was trying to do. And then if I'm do this right, I can select this whole thing, intersect faces, unless it's a solid, and then you use solid tools. Yeah, folks, this is me at my least comfortable when I'm just like trimming objects and using like just the basic tools. I love like rendering and I love all of that and playing around with the extensions. But all right, let's cap this off. We've got this bigger one here, and then we've also got, some details, but I think at a distance, we don't need sort of those details. Let's look at how it looks when it's overlaid over the image. I think one thing we need to do to feel like we need to do a couple of things in the next half an hour together, folks, is we need to do these little windowsills. We need to pull this whole thing out, this whole front out by 6 inches. And then lastly, if we get to it, we need to switch this. We need to make this a component and make this a door. We've got quite a bit to do. So I'll just stop talking and start modeling. Could I take this? Do you think I could take this and no, I think I probably need to do it over again. So here's what
I was going to say.
So here's what I'm going to do. So circle, number of sides, 60. I like to increase the number of sides that I have a circle unless I've scaled up my model. So I'm just back to working in halvesies. So. How's everyone doing today? What's going on this weekend?
What is going on this weekend? That's a good question.
Okay. So I'm drawing, I have to be careful because there is a line that I snap to because that roof is no longer in line with. So I have to be really careful now because it's going to snap to the 3D geometry and not to the what I'm drawing, which is the drawing surface. So it's almost like I need to hide this for the moment if I'm going to do this next bit and then just do this next bit here. Because I already know that I need to do all this stuff on the roof. So let's do that. Okay. So that's my center line. I already know that because I grabbed it from before. So, but this is where I think I faltered before. Is I only was modeling half of it. But if you want a nice clean arc like this, you create a whole circle, and then again you half it. You half it afterwards. And that's the center, so I'm not worried about where the reference image is. That's the center. So I'm going with what I know is the center line. And then I'll just remember to bring this down. I'm being a little bit careful. Yeah. I also love in old buildings, I just love the use of the geometry, you know what I mean? It's like there's just so much like hidden math and stuff in there that I really like. Call me old-fashioned. This is where you can call me old-fashioned, Donovan.
You're not going to hear it from me. I'm not going to call you old. There's quite a lively conversation going on in the YouTube comments about people's first computers and
I love it when you guys are off on a tangent and like I don't even
know
if you're watching anymore.
And 1984 Macs and Windows 1.0. They're all over the place. It's kind of funny. Peter says Canada is celebrating Thanksgiving this weekend.
That's right. And we have an Indigenous Day. Is that Monday? Is that on the 9th? I wasn't going to say anyone, but it is my birthday next week, so I plan on, you know.
Happy early
I
birthday,
know,
Eric.
I know. Speaking of getting old, so that's what I'm going to do next week is take a couple of days and live
Besides
the dream.
celebrating 500,000 subscribers, we can also celebrate your birthday together in person.
Yeah. This will be fun here. I'm going to go ahead and fan this out. Oh, how do I want to do that? I'm going to do that first, and then I'm going to copy it. And the reason why I'm copying it instead of just rotating it, the original, is because when you do the move copy, or when you rotate a copy, it doesn't stretch any of the geometry. So you can go and get rid of that original one. Pro tip. So I'm going to do that one more time. I'm going to rotate a copy of that, and I'm going to call that piece done. And then I'm going to do, I'm going to grab that and set it off to the side. And I got to model faster. It is surprising. This repeats, so I'm going to grab this whole thing, and I'm going to grab this whole piece here. This whole thing is technically symmetrical. I already have 2 windows. Oh no. Yeah, that's right. I only have to do half of it. Never mind. I've already split the thing in half. So all I have to do is just keep going with that. Let's keep going. I'm just going to maybe model quietly. I think I'm faster when I'm not talking. If there's anything anybody else wants to say in the chat.
Yeah, somebody in the chat was commenting that I think they said it was a brother that is an architect, listens to trance music when they're designing.
Sweet. But doesn't get into a trance. Maybe does get into a trance-like state. We call that the flow state. Sometimes I'll get my flow when I'm rendering. And I'm just in V-Ray and I'm just listening to music late at night and just moving.
Then, of course, ton of more comments about first computers, people reminiscing about DOS and BASIC and Windows 95 and things like that. So.
Yeah, fun stuff. All right, so that's half of this piece here. So I think I can safely take this piece, copy that. I'm going to group it, copy it. It doesn't need to be a component because it's already going to be, I'll make it a component anyway, just because it's a good habit. So that way, if I do work on it outside of the component, and then I'm going to unhide this, and then I'm going to go into it, paste that in place, and then I'm going to switch to my trace, from trace to view, and then that will give me that part. That was the part that I just did.
So Peter says, has Eric had the opportunity to assemble some of this complicated but interesting geometry on a house under construction?
No. That would be cool. If anybody's got a project and just needs an extra hand, let me know. I'll learn. I like to learn, live vicarious. I like to, I like to get my hands dirty. I do think it helps make you a better designer. I will say that, even though I don't always. I like the design side of things, but I will say that if you understand construction, especially with renovation with old properties and stuff like this, and old traditional methods. When I say traditional building methods, you know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah, I think it's probably a good thing to know how to do. All right, there's my little half sphere. I'm going to make that a group.
Brandy is talking about modeling Jerry Seinfeld's apartment, which we talked about when we were doing the bridge, right?
Yeah, was that a New York reference that we made?
Yeah.
I want to model, I think I said this last time too, when you talked about TV shows. I said I want to model The Simpsons house, which I spend way too much time watching Simpsons for those that were curious. Okay, so I don't need that line. Okay, so I do like to use, instead of using X-ray mode, sometimes I hit K keyboard shortcut, and that brings your back edges up. So you can see those back edges that you can snap to. I think that sometimes that's just better because you do sometimes get some issues with X-ray where things want to snap where maybe they shouldn't be. So this is now an issue where I'm going to be pushing backwards. I have some room here because the higher up you go, the more room I've got on the slope, but I have to just be a little bit careful, be a little bit mindful that I'm not going to go too far. And then here's where I need to pause for a second to see what's going on with that circle. That circle comes out. So it's out, it's almost like a donut. Wait, sorry, wrong house. Yeah, there you go. It's like a little donut. I wish I could get to like the details, like the flower. And then this little spire here, the little sunburst, repeats. So I may copy that up, make that a component, copy that up. And there's definitely lots of little grooves and details that are not in the drawing. You can see I do not have them here. Sorry. Sorry, not sorry. I shouldn't apologize. Okay, and then there's also all these little pieces because there's this piece, and this piece, and they all pop out above. Yeah, so I could do that too. So that's gonna...
Peter said maybe Eric could model Marge Simpson's hairdo.
That's just copying a sphere and then just like arraying it, you know, just a circle, like it looks like a grape, just or using scatter to like do that over like a big pill shape, like a stretched pill shape. So these come down over, so these do extrude over. So I will just kind of maybe separate. Okay, those are already separate. That's good. Okay, so can I pull this out? I can. I can. And then that means I probably want to pull, this one here probably should be in this part because it's really part of this larger bit. Explode. Yeah, that probably should be there. Okay, so this donut comes out. Does it come out? This donut should, yes it does. So that means that goes in and it sits flush and all of these pieces need to be erased. Which means this is not inside of my main component group. So I have to go into here to see what that looks like there. And if I wanted to, this comes out, this comes out. So I'm going to go down 2. I'm just using kind of 2 and 1 as my dimension. So if I want kind of a small number, I'd use 1. And if I want sort of a larger number, I just kind of use 2. And that way it just feels like I know that that's half of something. So if I wanted to pull this out, I'd just go 2. And then if I wanted to bring that in, I'd go 1. And if I wanted to pull this out again, I might go 1. And then all of a sudden I've got, you know, what looks like a little bit of detail. And then this one I want to sort of intersect faces with model again. Yeah. This one comes out. Okay. Shh, wind's gone quiet. This is what I've learned in my working days. Design firm days, when things get like really quiet, it's not always a good sign. Sometimes it's like, maybe it's okay.
No, you're in the flow, right?
Yeah. That one I want to push back 1. Yeah, that means I need to take my windows back. What? Okay, I don't need that. So copy that, delete that. This one I'm going to bring up just a little bit, paste that back in place because you can see it was a bit off. So that one needs to go, okay, so that one needs to go there, needs to go all the way through. There we go. It wants to go to there. And then now if I do this again, I should be able to delete that one, group delete that. Oops. Not group delete, just delete. Okay, so this one here is where I need to fix this. I kind of want to just do this. I kind of want to just delete. No, that is not going to work. What did I mess up here? this little reveal here, I shouldn't have. So I want to get rid of all of this extra geometry around, because when I push this, now I need to move. I'll just do this. This will be easier. Give that 2 inches. No, I'll just do that. Oh, where did that go?
So Alexi, again, I'm sorry, I'm mispronouncing your name. Says, I'm curious. SketchUp uses Ruby, right?
Yeah.
And I think the answer to that is yes. Correct.
Yes, we have a Ruby API under the hood. If you ask me much more than that, I won't be able to tell you, because that's why we've got these really super smart developers.
Yeah, I think that all of the extensions for SketchUp that people outside of SketchUp have developed have all been in Ruby.
Yeah, there's more capabilities, like for those that know like C++, and you can incorporate HTML, especially when it comes to things like dialog boxes. So I know a little bit that like there's more capabilities, but generally, SketchUp runs on the Ruby language. All right, I'm missing a piece here. This piece here. So this is where it gets a little bit tricky. Sometimes I'll copy that, delete it. Actually, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to move this. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to move it back so that it sits on the back face. It helps me if I narrate what I'm doing. So now I can kind of pull that back in, paste that back in place. And if I wanted to, I can just grab those two and say intersect faces with model. And if I hit back edges, I should be able to see those. I should be able just to knock those off using just my back edges. So that's kind of cool. Instead of using X-ray mode, I'm just going to use the back faces to do that. All right. Well, folks, we're getting there. We're getting there.
Yeah, we're on the final lap, it seems.
Yeah. I like this because it's kind of like here's what I want to do is I want to get to a similar level of detail where we could put these up next to each other and you'd say, all right, that kind of feels like it's part of the same project. So I think we're getting close. So let me see here. Is this a component? It is. I'm going to make that a component. Copy that, delete it, and then I don't need all this extra lines. Oh no. What I want to do is I want to get rid of this face here. I kind of want to, that face should be, for some reason that face isn't intersecting, so it's not working. I might just have to ignore that and move on for right now. I'm going to ignore it. I've got some line work that I'm going to clean up after the fact. So I'm in there, I paste that in place. That's a component, that's cool. That's a component, that's cool. And yeah, let's see. Let's look at this. Let's look one more time. There's a little bit of details along this edge, and then there's this little, I think these are called dentals. So I'm going to create one of those. I'm going to make that a component, and I'm going to array that over. And let's count them really quick. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this one is a little bit shorter, but I'm going to pretend that it's not. I'm going to pretend that it's just broken and that it's the same. So I'm going to use 5 inside of that section. And that would be where? That would be in this section here. So let's give that some articulation. This whole thing needs to come out as well. Do you remember how I said that in the beginning?
Mm-hmm.
And
yep.
I don't remember where it goes to, but I'm going to bring this whole thing out 6 inches. That means that anything I pull out above that, it needs to be even a little bit more than 6. That's
Paul said they're corbels, I think. Corbels.
Paul, were you helping us out on the when we were doing the Haunted Mansion one? Because there was quite a bit. There was some good stuff there that we needed to learn as well. All right, pulling all that out. Don't need those. Don't need that. Don't need that. Don't need that. I'm going to pull this out again. I don't know if that goes out or not. I just think it looks cooler. So that means that gives me a little bit more room to work with on this, which is good, I think. It might mean that this window doesn't sit so far back, so I need to pull that one forward a little bit as well. This window does not sit that far back. It sits just a few inches in. So this whole window module here, I'm going to make that a component. This whole thing needs to come up and sit just sort of, I'm just going to let that be flush. Yeah. So I'm going to copy that, delete that, get rid of all this extra geometry here that I don't think we need. Paste that in place, pull this forward. And yeah, pull this forward a little bit more because I want to see that sit above. This sort of needs to sit above the rest. Let's come out one. Yeah, okay. Yeah, going for it. We're just going for it, folks.
Yeah, it's looking good. It is looking good.
I know there's some more reveals here, so in this case, I might want to come in here and just do something like that really quickly and just give that a 1 inch and then push that in 1. Or, yeah, if I want to do that again, just make that really quick, 1 inch, push that in 1. That just kind of gives it a little bit more what looks like detail. And these ones here, if I was smart, I would have made these a component, but I might just really quickly offset those 0.5 and then, or no, actually 0.25. You wanna know why? Because you're gonna get it on both sides, 0.25. So that way you get it, and I'm double clicking to repeat that offset. You'll see why I'm doing this in just a second. It's because then these can come out, not that far. Actually, I'm going to make those a group. I'm going to go 0.5, 1. I'll bring that out 1. There we go. It's kind of cool. So now I'm going to make that a component. Move that up to here. Yeah, kind of want to move that up to here. You're going to see it twice because this one actually I don't really want that to be a component. So what I'm going to say is make that unique, go into it, and then this is where it gets a little bit tricky. For now I'm going to leave it, but technically that would be a little bit different, I think. But I think from a distance it sort of starts to pick up on those details. Yeah, I don't want to do too much detail because then it's going to, yeah. All right, I think I need to get this part recessed though. So this part needs to kind of come off of the surface so we can do those corbels. So that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to get this part off the surface, which might mean that this actually comes up to here.
Now remember similar type structures when we were doing the Haunted Mansion.
Yeah, that was fun. So now I just need to check to see, does this part go above or does that sit below? It probably sits flush. Yeah, they kind of, oh, actually it sits above by like an inch. So what I may want to do is just bring that out, by another inch. And then I'm going to bring this whole thing. Let's see here. This is where I think going back to the drawing may help. Yeah, I'm just going to bring this up 2 inches here. And then we're going to do it like that, 2. Yeah. So let's do something that fits inside of here. So let's just make this up here. So for sake of time, I'm just going to go and go over, what does 6 inches look like? 6 inches looks okay. And then what I'm going to do is make that a component. And I'm going to pull this out 4. I'm going to pull this out 2. Sorry for the rotations there, folks. That means I'm going to have to pull this lower one out even more. So I'll just pull that out. I want that to be out a little bit more. And then inside of this component, I'm just going to start with a face, use my Tyson method, and then create an arc so that the arc sits on that face. And if I even need something to snap the arc to, I just draw an extra line And that line, I just make sure that that stays there. And there we go. That's pretty simple. It's pretty simple. Did they have something that goes up and down the sides on the lower portion? No, it's brick, so it ends there. So it ends here. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to just take this and I'm going to scale this one to fit there. And then what I'm going to do is copy this to here. You're going to see why in just a second. I'm going to move this one all the way to here. And I'm going to say divide by 7. I think I want to do... No, it's not what I want to do. I want to do this. I want to move this out. Let's go by 6 inches. Yeah. And then I'll move this out. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's 6 inches. So all I have to do is delete that one. No. So if that one comes over, so now I already have 2. So divide by 4. I should have 3 in between. No. Okay, folks, this is what I'm trying to do. Okay, I'm trying to take this one, copy this to this side, delete that, divide by 4, and then get rid of the extra so that I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 individual ones. Now these ones I'm going to make unique so that I can come in here and scale and just make them a little bit skinnier. And that's kind
Ransom chimed in the comments saying triple click delete is handy for cleaning up models. Just be sure it's not connected to the rest of your model.
Yeah. Yep, you got to be. This is why we group sometimes first, particularly because of that. So we've got a pitched roof. We've got a gable or another eave, and we've got some chimneys and things. I'd love to get into these little details, but we're not going to get there because we're already at time. We're going to go ahead and get to the door and the steps, and I will have to just add that, and then I'm going to get in this little sill. So that's what we're going to do in the next 15 minutes. We're going to call it, folks. We're going to call it on time. So what I'm going to do, this is the tricky part. This is what I hate to do until the very end, but I can still... I'm trying to think about this. Okay, so here's the component. So if I don't want to make this one unique. I still want them to be components. I just want this part to be unique. So what I'm going to do is, well, I could delete this, go into here, make everything a component. You'll see why. You'll see why in just a second. So now I have another component within a component within a component. It's my inception joke. And then from there, I can go ahead and scale that by the -1. So I did that again. I did it one more time, but I did an extra component inside of there before I make this unique. And here's why I want it is now I'm going to go in and I'm going to make this component unique. So let's pop back out for just a second. And I'll show you what I mean. You can see here that these sit on the outside because they're not part of the component. They're not, otherwise I'd have to split the window in half, and I don't want to do that. So here I go in and I have a component now inside of this component. This was the one I want to make unique, and I'll tell you why in a second. So I'm going to make unique. So then when I come in here and delete this window, you can see it's only doing it on that side, but it's inside of another component. So if I'm in here, if I go in here and I start drawing, oh, it didn't work. Rectangle. Oh, it didn't work. Huh, interesting. Well, maybe I messed that one up. That's okay. If I do draw anything, I'll just have to copy it and I'll just have to mirror it over, because if I'm going to add details like on the chimney or something like that. But that's okay. We're getting pretty close to the end here. So I'm gonna call it. Thought I was being smart. Thought I was doing the right thing. Yeah.
That's all right. It's the things that we learn in lives.
Yeah. So let's do this door here. Let's do this door.
Peter says, "Don't stop. Keep drawing the decorative architectural elements for the next 3 hours."
All right, Peter.
Which kind of reminds me, back in the day, like we used to do this live for what, 4 hours?
Yeah, that's what Aaron. I wasn't this before my time, but that's what Aaron and Tyson said that they would go long. Huh. Okay.
I don't know if that's more dedication on Aaron or Tyson or more dedication on the audience sitting there for 4 hours
I think that's the
watching a
audience.
model.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always think about our audience and just think, hey, that's awesome that you guys have the time and the dedication to come join us because again, we can do this all day, but I know that some people have, work and stuff like that and families. That kind of thing. This part is interesting. I'm just going to scale this proportionally. I'm holding the Alt modifier. So this is still that same component, but the problem is the proportions don't really work. So what I'm going to have to do is make this one, I'm going to have to come in here and make both of these unique. And the reason why is because I have to pull this over. This has to go line up with here. With this line. There it is. Okay.
Kegi said the longer live times also allowed for more time for fun mistakes.
Yeah, I think I would imagine like anything, you start to, lose steam after a while. You'd start to make mistakes because you're like, oh man, I've been going at this for a long time. Yeah, they would have to take like bathroom breaks and stuff. Like, hang on, guys, it's been 3 hours, so I'm gonna take a little food break for a minute. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do the door. That says 6 inches, but I'm gonna go 5 because. All right. And then this door, I'm just gonna make the door a component. So let me pull this one down because I offset that. Make that a component. Get rid of this one. And you can see that it's actually a little bit closer on the outside. That's good actually, because it's not perfectly symmetrical, because what it'll do is when I copy this door component over, when I scale it by the -1, I can use the flip tool. I know how to use it, folks, for those that don't believe me. Oh, it did it again. Do you see that? The modifier it just stick. So I have to really be careful to watch it to make sure that I'm getting that copy and I'm not just moving it when I use the move modifier.
Is it like snapping that's like taking it out of that mode, or?
I don't know. Either that or I'm just not hitting it hard enough and I'm just not paying attention because I'm so used to it just might be maybe more sensitive than it used to be. I'm not really sure. 1.5. Little tip there, in order to get that offset, 1.5. I just do this whole face. I just take the whole thing, 1.5, and then I just delete the lines on the inside. That's way faster, and I know that's symmetrical. So, and then I'm going to do the steps as well. So there's that. Okay, that's the door. That's the door in 2D. Now let's draw. I can't see whether the steps go beyond the. I'm going to pretend that they don't. I'm going to have to look at the street view. I'm not going to go to the street view, but I'm going to pretend that the steps stay with what I can see here. So what I'm going to do is take. This is the fence railing. I need to come down a little bit. I need to come down a little bit lower to the top steps actually sits there. And that was the bottom of my building. So the top step sits there. And then I come down what should be 6 inches. It's 6 and it's 7, so that's okay. And then we have 2 more. These are really tall steps. This is actually 8 inches. So to stay symmetrical, we're just going to only do half the staircase. I wonder what we have for live stream. Do you remember when I did the Jack Skellington's house? Because it just reminded me because Halloween's coming up pretty soon.
Yep, pretty soon.
That was hard.
It's the month.
That was a difficult one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, this might be snapping to something beyond the grave. No, beyond the. It's okay. I'm just going to run with it. Okay, so we're going to go how many, if I'm going to ignore the drawing and I'm just going to go copy that up, and that's 1, 2, 3, so divided by 4. So it actually lines up with the drawing, but in this case I'm using the divide tool, so I know those steps are all equal. So that's cool. So I'm going to take that staircase because it's because it should be the same on both sides. I'm going to make that a component. I'm going to copy this over. Be really careful about making sure that I smack that modifier key so that it shows up as a copy. And then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to call that good. So let's go pop over to our view scene and let's wrap up with the staircase in the door. Let's do this. We can do this. I will feel a lot better. There it is. So it looks like it's pushed back about maybe 3 feet. And the top step sits like it has about maybe an inch off of the, just so that probably for the way that was poured, the foundation was poured on that or whatever. So we'll do that. Let's do it. You can do it. That was, do you guys know what that was from?
Are you referring to Waterboy or?
Yeah, it's Waterboy, isn't it?
Oh, no, Happy Madison.
Billy Madison? No. Which
Billy
one was
Madison.
that? Was that Happy Gilmore? Was it Billy Madison?
Happy Gilmore, that's what it was.
Was that Happy Gilmore?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. It took me a minute to remember that which one that was from.
I combined Billy Madison and Happy Gilmore and got Happy Madison.
Isn't that the name? Didn't he name his production company Happy Madison, though?
Yeah, he did, though, didn't he? Yeah.
I think he did.
Yeah.
All right. So that I'm going to pull, I said I was going to pull an inch off. This whole thing is going to set back, but I thought was going to be 3 feet. Not 3 inches, 3 feet. That might be too much. I'm going to go with 2.5 feet. Yeah, maybe even just 2 feet. Let's go with 2 feet. And then I'm going to use the rectangle tool to just draw that in there. Don't need the symmetricalness anymore. I'm going to use push-pull plus modifier. I'm going to push. You can't see it, but it's there. I'm going to go 2.5 feet. Get rid of that. And if I have some reversed faces, that's okay. I'll reverse those because I was doing the inside of that push-pull. Reverse those. Oh my gosh, folks, we can do this. We can do this. Okay, so the question is how far this sits. This has this frame around it. This frame kind of sits, I'm going to say an inch in. So I'm just going to push this like an inch in. Maybe 2 inches in, just to make it more obvious. And then we're going to do the steps, and we're going to do it. We're going to call it. So what about this window? Does this window stay high, or is it flush with the door? It looks flush with the door. So that was actually part of the door. So that was my mistake. So if I wanted to fix that, what I would do is I would come in here, and I would just grab this here. And I could just grab this face here, delete all this. This is where it starts to get, excuse me, for me, really messy when you start deleting faces. You got to be really careful. So I'm going to paste that into the door component. I'm going to pull that back, and then I'm going to move this up. And if I did that right, it should be okay. I have an extra line here that I don't need anymore. I'm going to hide the joint on those. I'm going to start hiding some joints. I made that one unique. Okay. Oh, I should have done it on all of them. Why did I not do it on all of them? I thought I made that. I thought I was using the same component.
Were you in the component within a component within the component?
Oh, no, don't confuse me. See here. There we go. Pull that out. We're going to hide these joints, folks, and then we're going to call it. This is tough. This is tough to get just when you have like a lot of small geometry, because you don't want to hide stuff that you don't want to hide. You know what I'm saying? And then that one is not coming from there. It's coming from somewhere else. So I'm going to leave it, and I'll get that later. Okay, one more joint on this one. Let's see if I can do this without messing anything up. Oh, I did get this accidentally. Okay. Well, Aaron, definitely respect. You know, when I saw how far you got, I was like, well, let's see if I can do better. To be honest with you, I didn't. It's you know, it's a lot of work. This is tough. So respect. This step sits flush. This step comes out. I'm going to go with 1 foot. I have no idea what the steps come out. I'm just going to go with the old-fashioned 1 foot because that's just kind of a nice, easy number. It's a pretty typical number for steps. And if I wanted to, I could pull that out and go 1 foot. And lastly, one more 1 foot. I'm going to hide the seam on those. Although if I really wanted to, I think Aaron did this. You just kind of make that a component, go inside, get rid of that symmetrical component. You really don't need it anymore. It's really just, and I can just actually delete that inner line instead of hiding it. And same thing here. If I want to just clean up some of those edges. And be careful. And then we should probably save it, don't you think, before we go? Okay.
It's always a good idea. Waleed from the chat said, how do we interact here? Like, how do you guys keep up with the model and the chat? Again, just to put a plug for the forum, forums.sketchup.com. If you go into the happenings channel, you can see the announcements whenever we announce the topic for a live model. You can see any of the reference images that we are going to be using for those models. People within the community have uploaded different reference images or examples or something to do with that model, and then afterwards we continue that conversation for those models and for those posts within the chat. So again, to plug the forums, if you aren't already, head over to forums.sketchup.com, sign in or sign up if you haven't done so already, and you can keep interacting with this community, with these models, and all things SketchUp Live on Fridays.
Yep, and on that same note, we post, this video is evergreen, so you're going to see it pop up. It'll stay there, so if anybody wants to go back and watch it again, you are more than welcome to. So let me hide this last seam here, just because it's going to bug me, That's my OCD, is when there's something that I know I didn't get to, or I knew that I was so close. At some point, I will call it. We have 2 minutes to go, though. I'm doing it. We are going to cut these seams. I can do this in less than 2 minutes. All right, now we're doing this one. This last one.
You can do it.
You can do it. Hide those seams. And yeah, I'm going to turn Aaron's on. Let's end this thing here. Let's end this. I'm going to get rid of some. I'm going to clean up some of this extra geometry that I didn't need. And I'm going to turn Aaron's on. And yeah, I'm going to bring that out by 1 inch. And bring that out by 1. We're going to listen to some music here in just a second. Get rid of that. Don't need that. All right. Whew. Man, that was kind of a bit of a marathon session there. So I'm going to save this here. I'm going to end this by turning on the location snapshot. So for those that remembered where we started, just 2 hours ago, not even 2 hours ago, less than 2 hours ago, this is where we started. We had a location snapshot, a reference image, and we had the first house on the road done. Now, the cool thing about this is that if I just make this whole thing a component, which it is, guess what? We actually have 2 houses on the road done, because if you remember, if I go back to my reference image here, we have a house for, excuse me, I'm going to delete that for a second. We have both B Cleaves and T Cleaves house. So there we go. Make that a component. We've got B Cleaves and T Cleaves right about there. So they're a little low, but that's okay. We'll bring them up. We'll get them up. And I'm going to send everybody, I'm going to give everybody a happy Friday. There we go. I'm calling it I'm saying happy Friday, everybody, for watching. Thanks for sticking with us. We don't usually do two-parters like this. It's not a two-parter, though. This is just going down the row. So I'm not going to challenge Tyson. If he's going to do next week, I think him and I switch this week because I'll be out of town next Friday. I don't know that I'm going to challenge Tyson to do the next one in the row, but I kind of want to. So I'm going to let him make that decision because it's his stream. And I'll wrap up by saying, as always, thanks everybody for watching. Don't forget, if you haven't already, subscribe so you can get all the notifications, especially with these live streams. We do this every Friday. Also, as I mentioned in the very beginning, we just launched a new course on SketchUp Campus. I don't know where I have that. I don't have it there. I'm just going to plug it by saying, it's learn.sketchup.com, and it's modeling from reference images, just like we are here, but it goes into way more detail. So if you have time, if you're interested in that workflow, or even if you just want to check and see if the workflow that you've been using for years is still works for you, I recommend it. Donovan, any other announcements of what's going on with us, or shall we hit it and quit it?
I just want to mirror and kind of like pass along all of the compliments you're getting in the chat. Great job. This was fun. As always, thank you everyone who is joining us, who's still here, who comes to hang out at these SketchUp lives. We don't do them for ourselves. We don't do these lives for ourselves. We do these lives for you guys. So it's always great to have you join in and be part of this because and we're here for you. This is all about helping you learn how to be better at SketchUp, how to do better at SketchUp, in the hopes that you can take this information that you learned here and go build something amazing. So thank you everybody for being here.
And on that very cheery note, thank you, Donovan, for your help, and I will end it there. So thanks to everyone again. See you. If I don't see you next time, we'll see you soon. Okay, cheers. And there.